today we're talking about
Habits.
habits.
Yeah. We talked last week about goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Goal setting, where do I want to be 10 years from now? Come back to 5 years from now, a year from now, a month from now, a week from now, and a day from now.
Mm-hmm.
And, goal setting to the now. Then we talk about habits. And, two things showed up this morning in what I was reading. Where did I see it? I guess, one was a friend had posted something, and another was Robin Williams' video with him speaking about life. And both of them connected to living in the moment.
Mm.
And, yes, we want to know where we want to be 10 years from now. We want to know 5 years from now, 1 year, month, week, day. Where are you now? Where are you right now that you can and should embrace where you are? Don't be thinking so far ahead that you can't connect with the person that you're with the moment that you're with, that moment that you're in, because you're going to miss so much. You're going to miss the sunset. You're going to miss the sunrise. You're going to miss the snowfall, the sounds of the birds, the grass turning green. All of a sudden, that's always been such a momentous moment when spring comes, and all of a sudden it's like it's not brown grass anymore, it's green grass. And then the next step is the leaves start to pop, and those are just moments that you got to be in. You can't miss those.
And like you're talking about physical seasons, also like figurative seasons of life, newborn baby, aging parents or grandparents, that those things are fleeting and really taking time to soak them up.
Yeah. Your brother Lucian called yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That's a moment.
Right.
When I get to talk to him.
Right, because he lives far away. Yeah.
Yeah. And your grandfather called yesterday, texted me a couple of times. And I called him back, and, there's some silence there, but I enjoy the silence.
Right.
We may not have a lot to talk about because we talked about a lot.
Right.
And yet, just being able to speak to him again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very fortunate to have pretty much all my grandparents. I have all my grandparents that were involved in my life, and, sharing good news with them is so fun. And every time we make it to a new stage of life, and we can tell them, we bought this house, or we're getting married, or, it's just such a blessing to have them, to share that with them.
Right.
And it will be sad when we don't. Okay, so we're talking about habits.
So, you set goals, and then in order to achieve those goals, you talked about systems a lot. We talked about James Clear and atomic habits. So how do you, no, it's not so much what's the habit? It's how do you step into and follow through with the habit? And you do that by setting yourself up for success. So if your habit, and again, an easy example is you make a goal of, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to start working out. So you have a plan of, somewhat of a plan of what you're going to do. And it may be going to the gym. It may be working out at your own house. You may go for a run. You may go for a walk, whatever it is. It all start, and I'm going to use the example where you start in the morning, because that's me. That's how I do it. And what happens is you set an intention the night before that you're going to work out, and you set your alarm so that it's going to go off so you have time to complete whatever time frame you have to work out in. So your habit begins the night before of setting the intention, and then in the morning when your alarm goes off, that's the next step of your habit, because you get up, you shut your alarm off, another habit. You get out of bed, you go do whatever you do first. For me, I go get a glass of water, and that's a habit. So then, your next habit may be that you go put your running shoes on. Well, you have also by means of intention, you've got your running clothes all ready to go. And some say, actually, once you get, I miss a step, when you turn your alarm off, you get dressed. And what do you get dressed into? You get dressed into your workout clothes. So you've already got them on. So by the time it's time to work out, you are, 6, 7, 8 steps into the habit to complete what you want to do. And if you look at those habits like links in a chain, a heavy metal chain, when the habit of, setting the intention the night before connects to setting your alarm, which connects to your alarm going off, which connects then to you getting up and then getting dressed in your workout clothes, getting your glass of water, let's say, putting on your running shoes or walking shoes and going out for a walk or starting your exercise routine. And once those links all connect together, you almost can't not complete your habit, your complete habit. Mm-hmm. And then once those things all tie together, you're on your way. And, sometimes with a habit, it's easy to outline the habit for some people. And I'm going to do this. And for some people, it's easy to get started. And for some people, it's easy when you're halfway through the habit or partially through the habit. It's been a while. It's easy to fall off. And then what do you do to get back on the horse? And we discussed last week a little bit about the 66-day challenge. And there's been research done to prove that on average, there are research has been done to show it's a different number of days, but on average it's 66 days to complete a habit or to form a new pattern. So if you create a calendar with 66 days on it and you check off each day that you've completed that, well, you're well on your way to making that now a habit. And so let's say you're into the 66-day challenge and you're 33 days in and you're starting to fall off. Well, you start again. And so I was pretty sick in December. I had a cold, bad cold. It was knocking me out. And I couldn't work out. I could not get myself, I just wasn't physically feeling capable of doing it. Hard thing for me to admit and not do. So there was probably 3.5 weeks that I didn't work out at all. And then I've set my mind, I've set my intention, it's time to get back to it. So I get started again. And it was just so easy to step back into that. And the first days were the easiest, both mentally and physically. And then, it became a little harder. My body's not where I was before, and it's a bit frustrating to have to try to get back there again. And yet, I'm almost there now, and I'll move beyond where I was, hopefully pretty soon, because I set an intention, I have a habit, and I have a goal to do certain things. And those goals may not relate to my daily workout, and yet even greater, they relate to a longer-term goal that's going to happen later on. I'm going to do a long bike ride with Lucian in Minnesota in September. And
that's the goal.
That's the goal. And that's my work. The daily work that I do will make that successful, less painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of threw a bunch of things at the wall,
yeah.
and
I do
which
that.
is good, because it creates an opportunity to break things down. Talked about, goal setting is kind of the why, or creating a why around what you want to do, whether it's lose weight or a bike ride with Lucian in Minnesota or whatever. And then, the systems to do that are, the things you're going to do over the entire time between now and that goal being completed, met, or not met, depending on how good or bad your system is. And then the habits are the things that make up the system. They're the day-to-day or the, week-to-week things that you're going to do to make that goal or to accomplish that goal. You talked a little bit about setting yourself up for success the night before, the morning of. There's a lot of, little tricks. And I think what's important is to make this episode talking about habits is kind of like, a a la carte sampling of the tricks and tips for, good habits. It should really be a launching off point and a sales pitch for reading Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Because it's the most comprehensive book on habits. I don't think anyone would dispute that. It's easy to read. They're short chapters. And he really, James Clear really does a great job of, just touching on things that will help you succeed to create the good habits that you want to. And I think something else that we need to talk about is there's different types of habits. There's good habits, bad habits, and neutral habits. There's things that we do, and most are either good or bad. Few are neutral. The good habits, getting up at a decent hour, going to bed at a decent hour, eating, fueling your body with good fuel consistently, and good sleep, exercise, and then there's bad habits. There's staying up late, drinking, smoking, gambling, sleeping in too late,
not following your habits.
Yeah, not exercising.
Habit.
Well, I think too. It's not just vices. It's things that are not productive, not unproductive, but counterproductive. Things that are not productive are things that don't move the ball forward, but they also don't set you back. Looking at the time, it doesn't change, good or bad. Anyway, so he talks in the book about, forming good habits and eliminating bad habits. One of the things that he mentions is making, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how you do this, making good habits easy, accessible, and have a positive reward for doing them. Make them attractive. That's the word he uses. And then for bad habits, making them out of reach, difficult to do, and have negative consequences. So they talk about the carrot and the stick. The carrot being the reward for doing something good, or the stick being kind of the consequence for doing something bad or not doing the good thing. And sometimes we lean too far in one direction or the other. So what are some ways that you can use the carrot for making good habits more attractive, easier to do? You talked about, setting out your workout clothes. What other things are,
Well, I think from a carrot perspective, and then this is me personally, the carrot versus the stick. The carrot is I've done it. I've completed it. The stick is I didn't do it. And I'm beating myself up with this stick over my head, I'm just cracking myself up, in
the stick
way.
is you did something you shouldn't have done, and you need to be punished for it.
Like what? What?
Like I ate a gallon of ice cream last night.
Yes. Yeah.
Or
I watched TV last night.
Right.
And I did last night.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I watched TV last night. I try not to watch TV at night. I'll watch an episode sometimes or something. Sometimes I'll watch a couple of videos, but past
like
7
YouTube
o'clock,
videos?
like YouTube videos, like how to do this, instructional things most of the time. And someone I know suggested a surfing series.
Oh yeah,
that I got hooked on.
Make or break.
Yeah,
on Apple TV.
Yeah, and I didn't know how many episodes there were. Well, I only had 2 left last night, and so I watched both of them.
Wow, when did I suggest that?
A couple of days ago.
It's a binge-worthy series.
Yes. So anyways, I watched both episodes, and it's not there's no violence, there's nothing like that would upset me necessarily mentally, but the more I learn, the effect that that stimulation on your brain from a screen has, before you go to bed, the older you get, the greater the influence that has.
Yeah.
And, I had my worst sleep score ever
Really?
last night.
That's fascinating.
Very
Because you have a
fascinating.
sleep 8.
I have yes, I have a
8 sleep.
8 sleep. Yes.
I always
I think I corrected you wrong last time. It's an 8 sleep.
No, I think you always
Oh, yeah?
correct me right,
Okay.
and I'm always wrong.
Yeah, it's an 8 sleep, and it keeps track of my sleeping habits and Mom's. It's separate for each side of the bed. And typically if I, like, when I fell off and when I was sick, I was getting 80s, 85s, maybe. I typically get in the 90s. I'm typically rated 100, and it's measuring consistency, your sleep patterns, how long you sleep. Those are the kind of primary things it's looking at. And last night I got 62.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
How
a
did that
failing.
happen?
That's a failing score.
That's a failing score. Yeah. And so I saw that. So it's one of the first things I check because I got to shut. So it has an alarm in the bed.
It's like a haptic alarm.
Haptic alarm. It's vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
It vibrates the bed, and it starts slow and then builds up. It's not that slow. I mean, it's
How fast does it wake you up, do you think?
I'm awake
On the
immediately.
first one?
First one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm awake, and it's not violently shaking me or
Right.
anything like that. It's like
It's not electric shock.
no, not electric shock. No. So I'm up, and I've got to shut it off, and when I shut it off, it shows me my score.
Mm.
And so it's not like something I'm going to avoid. And I like to know how I did.
Mm.
So I'm like 62%. And then you know what happened? What did my brain say? Maybe you should go back to bed.
Oh.
You didn't get enough sleep.
Ooh.
And,
Did you?
No.
Oh, good.
No. But I had that momentary thought.
Mm.
And, I know enough about the carrot and the stick
Mm-hmm.
that if I go back to bed, it's not going to be good for me.
Yeah, because you're going to beat yourself up.
I'm going to beat myself up.
Yeah.
That stick's whacking me in the head
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather be chomping on a
Yeah.
carrot. And I know. And I know that, in the past, I used to get a lot less sleep. I know I can make it. And that is just totally that limiting belief that you didn't get enough sleep, you can't work out. Or you're gonna, and big deal. I mean, I didn't get as much sleep as I normally might get if I believe in this app.
Right.
And which I question sometimes because I didn't feel like I didn't sleep that much. So, I know that I can push myself through. And what happens if I do 2 less push-ups because I'm a little tired? Is that a failure?
Right. Well, that you're touching on something else that James Clear talks about, which is favoring the routine over the period or the amount. So if you say I'm going to work out 5 times a week for 45 minutes, which is like anyone that does that is just leagues ahead of the rest of us. He says, if let's say you wake up and your sleep score is bad and you have an appointment earlier in the day or a flight, you only have time for 15-minute workout. Well, he says, get in the gym and do a 10-minute or a 2-minute workout and leave versus, or just do some push-ups on the ground or whatever.
Right.
Favor the habit over, well, I don't have time for 45 minutes, so what's the point? That all or nothing mentality.
Right.
And that's, like you said, you're okay, you got a bad sleep score, your workout's not going to be as productive, but.
And the fact of the matter was I did everything that I normally would do. I didn't skip anything. I didn't miss anything.
Right.
I'm still, working my way back from being sick, but at the same time, I did everything that I would normally do.
Right.
And kind of to that point about James Clear, I may not have the results that I had before I was sick. I'm making my way back there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the carrot and the stick, the favoring the routine. What are some other things that you think helps form good habits or break bad habits?
Well, I think, again, it goes to that why, and it goes to the goals and the systems. And something that Jay Papasan sent out, wasn't last week, it was a week before in his weekly email that he sends out. It was taking your goal setting to the next step, and that was to have your goals or your habits or, what you want to do on a daily basis. I guess not necessarily just on a daily basis. Having those goals in front of you all the time especially in the morning, to check in with them. And so I have started to do that. I have, I call it my MVP list, my most valuable people list.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on my most valuable priorities, depending on what it happens to be. And I have now started, I write those 4 things that are the most important at the top of my list so that I can, in the morning, check them off and get them done.
And those are prioritized.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if you have to do something today and you could do something today and you shouldn't do something today, you have them ranked
Right.
kind of in that order.
Yeah.
And it's a short list. It's not
Yeah, it's
27
Yeah.
to-dos
No.
because 27 to-dos, you were going to do 3 or 4 of them anyway.
Right.
So why not just only write those down
Yes.
in that MVP? Maybe you write down, a greater to-do list
Mm.
further down.
Yeah, the list is longer than it should be. However, those things are at the top, and that's how I, when we track our goals, that's what I keep track of on a weekly basis for my 12-week in a year score.
Got it. Okay. What are some habits that you think, we've talked about exercise. What are some other habits that you think really unlock some energy or power or anything in your life that, sets you up day to day or, over the course of a year?
Yeah, I think mindset. Mindset is a habit, I believe.
So what is that? What habit have you developed for maintaining a positive and powerful mindset? Because you can't just wake up and go mindset. You have to do something.
Yeah. Well, I've always been very fortunate that I've had a positive outlook. It started really young. I just never wanted anything negative in my brain. Actually, a funny story. This influenced me, and it came from the weirdest of places. Not the weirdest, but a strange place. So I'm probably, I don't know, maybe I'm 9 or 10 years old, and I'm watching a movie on TV, because that's all there were movies on TV. It was a repeat or something. It was on the movies, and it was called Kelly's Heroes, I believe. It's a World War II movie with a vast group of really popular actors in it. Donald Sutherland was in it. I think Sean Connery might have been in it. Don Nichols was in it. I'm not going to remember them all, but there was who's the guy who played George C. Scott, maybe? The names aren't as important. It was a host of really good actors.
Star-studded.
Star-studded, thank you. So, they're making this trek into enemy territory, and these different groups are getting together. And one of the groups is a tank group, and it's the head of the tank group is Donald Sutherland. Well, he's a hippie. He's got his helmet on sideways, and he is just chill to the max. And he's like, nothing's going to bother me. Everything's okay. Anytime there's some conflict that comes up, he's, no worries. And so one time somebody is in his face, and he's real cool, calm, says, "Hey, I don't want none of those negative vibes, or don't be bringing your negative vibes around me." He said, everything's cool here. We're all good. And I heard that, and I was like, yeah, I don't want your negative vibes.
Yeah.
I don't need them.
Yeah.
No, don't try to infiltrate my space that's happy and calm.
Yeah.
So I just took that to heart, and that was a real kind of a clincher for me that, I didn't want that negative space. And then I realized more and more that I could change. I could change my mindset. I could change from feeling like shoot, you just did something really.
Right.
Why did you do that? You fool. You beat yourself up. Self-critic, yeah. And, there's some advantage to some self-criticism, and yet how long does that last?
Right.
Are you going to, put yourself in the dumps for the rest of the day or your life because of something that happened? And at some point in time, I also came to the conclusion that my brain is like a remote control, and my mindset is part of that, button, and I can change the channel on my mindset. And the more you practice that, again, practicing a habit, creating it. If I've got some negative vibes coming in, I'm pumping the channel and I'm
Right.
shifting to something
Right.
else.
One of the things that you mentioned being that movie is what that's programming.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about programming leads to your thoughts, leads to your feelings, leads to your actions, leads to your results.
Right.
Your results inform your programming, and it's just a a feedback loop.
Yeah.
So you watch that movie, that was the programming, that the input that you were receiving, your thought was, oh, I like that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Your feeling was, positive around it. So then you acted as if he would act
Mm-hmm.
in future scenarios. The results you got were probably positive.
Mm-hmm.
It probably was more beneficial to have a relaxed and calm attitude when someone's coming at you with negativity versus accepting the negativity or, fighting against it and
Mm-hmm.
arguing.
Mm-hmm.
And your positive results informed,
Mm.
your programming. So it gets that feedback loop.
Yeah, and that was one maybe 10 or 20 second clip out of a movie that I watched 50 years ago.
Right. Well, it was impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So that is programming. So you can control the programming,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of the habit around mindset would be controlling your programming.
Right.
What programming are you allowing in, and what
Mm-hmm.
programming are you not allowing in?
Yeah.
There are open channels and there are kind of more closed channels. Open channels being social media. You're scrolling.
Right.
It's throwing random stuff at you. Ads,
Yes.
suggested posts.
Mm-hmm.
You may,
Mm-hmm.
even if you control your feed
Mm.
and only follow the right accounts,
Yeah.
you're still going to get
Yeah.
inputs that
Absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yes. And I notice that more and more, and again, have had to create a pattern where, there's a lot of bad stuff that comes up on that sort of side of the screen. I was looking at something yesterday, and I was watching a video, and you've got these stack of 4 or 5 other things on the right-hand side that are fed there.
Your
And
suggested videos.
Your suggested videos.
Yeah.
And one of them is some 55-year-old woman, I'm single, and, it's a fairly suggestive
Mhm.
photo,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally cannot get but I had to figure out a way to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized I could max my screen. That was the only way I could get rid of it.
Right.
And when I minimize to close out, there it is,
Right.
still there.
Right.
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
But
And-
again, I just took the remote. I said that
Right.
that image is not there.
Right. Right. And that's controlling,
Mm-hmm.
what programming you're exposed to.
Right.
There's also, we talk about all the things that you consume, all the people that you interact with. What podcasts are you subscribed to? Are they positive? Are they neutral? Are they negative? What YouTube channels are you subscribed to? What accounts do you follow on social media? How much time do you spend scrolling on social media? If you spend 30 seconds twice a day on social media, the chances you're going to encounter that negativity or something that just doesn't make your life better is so much lower than if you spend 2 hours a day scrolling on social media or watching YouTube videos or whatever, or just cable TV. I mean, cable TV, I can't even watch cable TV. No judgment to anyone that does. The fact that I don't get to choose what I see between this segment and that segment,
Right.
I'm just
Right.
subjected to.
Yeah.
And you can turn the TV off or change channel or mute it or whatever, but I like to be in control, and that's why social media does so well, is because
Yes.
we're in control of what we're seeing to a certain extent.
To a certain extent.
Ultimately not, because there would be no money in it if we had 100% control. But okay, so talked a little bit about programming. What are some things that you do to program your mind to have the mindset that you want? What are some programming habits that you have? And if you can't come up with any, I will tell them for you because I'm pretty sure I can guess some.
Okay. Prayer.
Yep. Daily.
Daily. Constant.
More than daily.
Actually, I have my affirmations that I write down every day.
Okay,
and
that's something.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I write those down, and that's to love everybody always, surrender to intention, which requires action, to be present, purpose, which requires priorities and passion, and to find the joy, to judge not. And I'm like, just the other day, I'm like, why don't you write something down about praying? And now I write pray always.
Mm.
And that's the more I pray, the better my mindset. And who are you having a conversation with in your brain? Well, lots of times you're thinking about who you're going to speak with, or you might just be enjoying something. You're kind of talking to yourself. There's a God in the universe who is there all the time, listening, waiting for us to speak with him. And, that's who's in my brain.
Mm.
And that's who keeps me, coming back to what's really important. And, when I press the remote control, I'm going back to that channel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Where's my friend?
Yeah.
I want to talk to my friend.
Right. Okay, so prayer, writing affirmations or mantras.
Mm-hmm.
What about reading?
Well, yeah, I read. It's funny because I tell people I can't read because I literally cannot read because it'll put me to sleep if I'm reading a book.
Yeah.
I can
I'm the
listen
same way.
to a audio book, and that's how I have. When I discovered audiobooks, it changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I could then listen. I could plow through books.
Right.
And I can listen to them when I'm exercising, when I'm in the truck or the car driving around, or when I'm working, I can really get through some books. So yeah, books, podcasts, I have a library of podcasts that I listen to, and those messages are all extremely positive, and I don't have to some extent, I don't have to filter them at all for the most part.
Right. Yeah. What are some podcasts that you really enjoy?
Probably the first podcast that I started to listen to is That Sounds Fun with Annie F. Downs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also funny because two of the podcasts that I listened to, if you looked at the demographic, they're probably very female-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one I listened to is All Things Life and Real Estate with Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Yeah.
I really like that a lot.
What do you get from that one particularly?
I get a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I get some real estate. I get some faith, goal setting from them, experience. They're very high level people, and they're also started. Well, Linda McKissick, her story is very public, that they started at a place where they were not going to file bankruptcy, owed a lot of money.
Mm.
People had encouraged them to file bankruptcy, and they dug themselves out of that through real estate, and now, they've just blown it apart.
That's awesome. And what are some other ones that those are the first two that you really found? What are some other ones that you enjoy? Those are the first two.
I would say, I'm not sure, that Annie F. Downs is probably the first one that I listened to. I listened to Tim Ferriss.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the podcasts I listen to are like 40 minutes to an hour long. Tim's are much longer. Sometimes I don't get through all of them. Yet I want to. Some of the topics are, that's the other great thing about podcasts is if it's a topic that you're not interested,
right,
don't listen to it.
Yeah. That was one of the things that James Clear said in that podcast was be quick to put a book down.
Yes.
Be quick to quit a book.
Yeah. Be quick to quit a book.
Or a podcast or whatever. If you're not getting value.
Yeah, a TV show, whatever it happens to be. And I'll tell you, for me, I was, whether I'm wired that way or taught that way, I've always been, if I pick up a book, I got to finish it. I got to give it its due.
I am the opposite. I'm like, as soon as I get bored, I'm like, I'm not listening or reading any more of this.
Yeah. Typically, I'm reading a book because somebody has recommended it, so I'll get through it. It's the same thing with music, too. I mean, somebody recommends a singer or a song, I'm going to jump and listen to it. And usually I'll grab it. I listened to one this morning that was a recommendation, and I was like, that's not really what I was looking for, which doesn't happen to me very often.
Yeah.
So, books and podcasts. Other podcasts that I listen to, I do listen to Tim Ferriss. I listen to Jordan Peterson. I'll listen to Jocko when you send it to me. I'm not subscribed to Jocko.
I usually listen to like an occasional one that either a bunch of people shared or someone I know, or somehow it just comes across my radar. And those are usually the ones I share.
And it's not that I don't like to listen to Jocko.
Right.
It's only so much time that I can listen.
Totally. Yeah.
And I've got to kind of pick and choose. I also listen to sometimes David Morse, who was at Portland Market Center, and now he's in Arizona.
What's his podcast called?
We just changed the name. He used to have a...
AI was the name before?
I
can't remember.
Something about... It was the All In podcast.
AI.
So AI, sorry. All In podcast. And now he's changed it slightly because he doesn't have Joe Quadrucci is no longer on the podcast with him routinely.
Yeah.
So and again, they're all...
You haven't mentioned The Bible in a Year with
Mike
Schmitz.
Yeah.
That's the podcast you listen to the most.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's... So when you look at my habits, it's... After I've had my drink of water, the next thing is I go into the bathroom and I'm shaving and I'm listening to Father Mike Schmitz, The Bible in a Year podcast. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay. Books, podcasts. What about people? That's something that the programming is who you spend, the most time with. How do you...
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The Jim Rohn quote. And, that's I guess that could go 2 ways. You could say, who do I spend time with when I have the opportunity to choose who I spend time with, versus who do I spend time with because my job, my work requires that I spend time with them.
I think we won't talk about the latter, and we'll talk about the former, because you don't get to pick. I mean, you can pick who your clients are. You can pick, who you bump into to a certain extent.
Yes.
At the same time, people are put before you, and most of the time, 80% you're going to serve that person.
Yeah.
There are times when you choose not to, or they choose not to work with you. But the people that you work with, the people that you are married to, are in community with, those are the people that I think are really the habit.
Yeah. So if we categorize the highest priority of people that I want to spend time with and that I would choose to spend time with, you, your mother, your sisters, your brother, my family, extended family, and, there's, I don't know. There's too many people that I guess... Part of the challenge that I have is I have a lot of people that have really influenced me in a very positive way, and how do I spend time with them?
Yeah.
Mike and Tom, I grew up with them. We have our own lives.
Right.
My cousins, who, I spent a lot of time with, we now have our own lives. And also when you turn, when you get in your 50s and you get in your 60s, depending on where you are with your children, if your children are out of the house and they're living their own lives, they have their own lives. So, I don't just stop over here and say, hey, let's hang out for a couple hours, because you got things to do. So there's more opportunity to connect with those friends and cousins and whatnot that you didn't have before.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and that's a season that I'm really looking forward to, and don't want to miss that moment to be able to be with them, to figure out how to spend time with them.
Right. I'm gonna prompt you with Keller Williams. That's one where you've intentionally chosen the brokerage that you're a part of.
Yeah, I mean, really, we picked Keller Williams. Well, Mom did. It wasn't me. I, encouraged her. Talk about a God thing. I mean, that just kind of fell into her lap. She had read a book, by Gary Keller before thinking about being in real estate. Then this friend, suggested she get into real estate, and she was in Keller Williams. And then, in researching Keller Williams, it didn't take long to get to the point, especially at the age of the company that it was then. It was 15 years younger than it is now, and it's only 36 years old. Let's say, the I'm not sure, the foundation of the business of Keller Williams is God, family, and business. I heard that. I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. And
in
then,
that order.
In that order, right. And then to hear that routinely, to see it in action, to see the servant leadership that comes out of Keller Williams, to see how Keller Williams is so supportive nationally, regionally, and then locally. I was at the on the All Partners Zoom meeting yesterday, and there's everybody's sharing, what they're doing, how they're doing it. Nobody's holding back, their success or what they're working on, and that's just amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Honestly, sometimes I struggle with it because I want to think that some things I'm doing are unique. They're not really.
Yeah.
Somebody has done them before.
Right.
At what level can you do them?
Right. It's kind of like being on a sports team
Yeah.
where you're all competing for who starts, but at the end of the day, you're on the same team.
Yeah.
And when I do well, the team does well, and when you do well, the team does well.
Yeah, and that's something that you can miss, I think, on Keller Williams. Maybe because of the size that it's at now. I think in the beginning there was probably more of that, and people who started a long time ago, relatively, with Keller Williams recognize that more because, the company is all built around sharing the profits so that if you do well, I do well. And that's alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
We got our profit share check, it came out today, and, Mom and I did well.
Yeah.
This month.
And that's based on who you've brought in and mentored in the company, and
Exactly.
When they do well,
we do well.
you get a small kickback.
When they do well and the market center does well, then yes, we get a benefit.
Okay. The other one that I was thinking of was your small group, your men's group.
Oh, my men's group. Yeah. And I have there's lots of those. I consider Chop Point to be, like a small group for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a place that I would like to be there physically more. I'm there mentally a lot.
Yeah.
Because that was really inspirational in my formation. And then, church. There's another men's group that I belong to now. It's called That Man Is You.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a program that was started, I don't know, just a couple of years ago, and St. Mary's is now doing it. So it's been really great because there's probably a consistent 10 or 12 people that are there, sometimes up to 20. And they're people I've known all my life, but I've never connected with. And to hear them sharing their hearts and minds, it's amazing. I don't want to. I'll open this just a little bit. I am Catholic, and that's how I've been raised, and that's where I find my place. And there can be, and people will question, are Catholics going to go to heaven? Do they believe in God? Do they don't read the Bible? Whatever it might be. And I'm hearing the hearts and minds of these men, and I am blown away what's happening in there, because you just think everybody is kind of flatlined, until you get to hear their heart and their mind. There might be some feeling that unless they're so enthusiastic or come across, with this tremendously bright light, that they may be a little flatlined. And to hear these people speak is amazing.
Well, just to touch on that, one thing I've heard that has had an impact on me is you can argue with someone's beliefs and reasons and thoughts, but what you can't argue with is someone's testimony.
Yeah, right.
And someone's story is their story.
Yeah.
And when you hear someone's story, usually it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Typically for the better.
Right.
Usually you have more compassion or empathy or love or good feelings towards people once you know their story. And that, I think, is if you open with "I'm Catholic," immediately people are gonna say, "Well, what? You must think this," or jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
When you open with "This is my story,"
Right.
and I'm Catholic,
Right.
everyone goes, "That makes sense."
Yeah. Well, and also it's funny because I have some friends who they kind of categorize me as the born again Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah. You are an evangelical, charismatic Catholic.
Yeah. The interesting
You
thing
don't
is,
fit in a box real well.
the funny thing is that I think they have to throw the born again in there for them to justify that they can be friends with me to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way.
Right.
It's a compliment from on their behalf.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so those are kind of some broader habits.
Yeah. And as I mature in age and capacity, I guess I'll say, I will seek those avenues more and more. We're involved in Young Life. Mom's involved in the Midcoast Youth Center. Those are ways that we can support people in different places, and I think we have a real heart for younger people to help set them on a good path, at least give them the opportunity to.
Right. Well, that to me is, if you took last week we talked about all the different areas of your life, the balls, the finance, the service, the business. What we're talking about is how do you translate those areas, goals, etc., and make them a habit.
Yeah.
Joining a small group is making your spiritual and community goal a habit.
Yeah.
Supporting Midcoast Youth Center or Young Life is making your philanthropic or service-related goals a habit.
Yep.
If you're on the board meeting for Midcoast Youth Center or Chop Point or Young Life, you are creating the habit of serving, and maybe you tithe to organizations or church or whatever. That's making your financial philanthropy a habit. If it comes out every month or every week automatically, that's a habit.
Yeah.
If once in a while you write a check, that's not a habit. That's generous, but it's not a habit. And that, that's kind of what we're talking about, is how do you translate these things that, are lofty visions or whatever, and how do you, when the rubber meets the road, how do you keep it going?
Yeah. And so you talk about the balls, the spiritual, the financial, the key relationships, the personal, the business, and the job. And each one of those balls contained inside of there for the 12-week year that we, focus on. Within each of those balls are probably 4, 5, 6, 7 different things that, are my focus for that 12-week period. And, I view that not constantly, but, daily, to see where am I at on those. And they're the constant reminder to come back to form a habit around doing those things. Like for Young Life, we really need to bring in some more people into the leadership circle to support, the day-to-day actions that happen at Young Life. We need more financial support. So, in there are some actions that I need to take to help make that happen.
Yeah. Who is someone that either you grew up or in the last decade or right now you watch them and their habits, and you emulate them or want to emulate them in their habits?
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay, specifically on Jesus, I think the habit that is often overlooked, especially by the church, is Jesus went away. Like every time in the Bible, it's like, and Jesus was like, no, I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm going on a brief hiatus for a few hours, a few days.
Yep. He would do that, and he would say, I have other people to serve. So I have done my work here. I need to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he couldn't serve the next group of people without a break in between.
Right.
And I think we often miss that
Mm.
in our own lives,
Mm-hmm.
or we know people that are burnt out.
Mm.
They're just every hour is given to someone else.
Right.
There's no Sabbath.
Yeah.
There's no weekly Sabbath, and I mean that in the most general sense,
Mm-hmm.
not like not whatever. Or out, daily rest
Mm-hmm.
doesn't just mean sleep.
Mm.
It could mean not looking at your phone, not looking for something to do, not
Mm.
helping someone or not working or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Just being.
Yeah.
And I think that is in a world where boredom has essentially been eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember being so bored as a kid, so often,
Mm. I remember you saying you were bored as a kid.
all the time. I was always bored.
Yeah. And that was a naughty word in our
Right,
house.
totally. And really, I am so grateful that I grew up bored. Like there were times when there was the only thing to do was use your imagination and come up with something fun or chill. Nowadays, I mean, I have to force myself to be bored. I have to put my phone up and,
You seek boredom.
totally. And not often enough.
Right, right. And that's part of being in the moment. you
Yeah.
know. Missing moments by being distracted. And I think it was today's devotional that I was reading talked about Jesus being exhausted and tired. And example, or it might have been Father Mike. No, it was definitely in my devotional that there are examples of Jesus being tired. He would have to go off and rest and pray. And the example today was he was so exhausted that he got into a boat in a storm and fell asleep, and they had to wake him up. It's not like he's woken by the storm. What's going on?
Right.
It's like, hey, Jesus, you got to wake up and save us.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Right,
die.
Right. Yeah. I think what's cool about that is that if Jesus wasn't fully man, fully God, which you could spend a lifetime unpacking that.
Yeah.
But let's just go with that assumption. If he wasn't fully God, he couldn't have done the right thing all the time. If he wasn't fully man, we'd be like, well, he's God.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
How can we ever even come close to that? And you can't. But he got tired. He wanted to cuss people out, and I'm sure on occasion did.
Yeah.
When justified. So for me, it's like when I see someone who just appears perfect, it's like, well, I'll never be that, But when you see someone who's somewhat perfect, but you also see the ways in which they're vulnerable or human or whatever, it makes it like, wow, maybe I could get better.
Yeah.
And you're not really supposed to compare yourself to other people. At the same time, you are looking for people to emulate and imitate.
Yeah.
And when you see that they're not perfect,
Right. Right.
Every morning Jocko posts, 4:30, his watch that he's up. Well, some days he posts, I'm headed back down for a few more hours, hold the line, or something like that.
Nice.
And it's like,
the humility.
yeah, it's like not everyone or no one is going to be perfect every day, all the time.
Yeah.
And for people to see that and realize that, and it's cool to read the comments on those posts. Like other people will be like, "Don't worry, we got it." I'm here, I'm up. And it's like a community thing around that. And I just think that when I see Jesus' humanity, that's when I'm like, okay, like this is inspiring. It's when someone appears perfect that it's just out of reach.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan of the Chosen TV series, and there's I can't remember which episode it's in or which season it's in. He has started his healing, and there's a crowd, and the other disciples it's nighttime, it's dark. The other disciples are in a circle and they're talking and they're arguing about this, that, very minuscule things about what to do, how to do things, and I'm doing more or you're doing less or whatever it happened to be. They're basically just jabbing at each other. And Jesus has been out this whole time healing people, and he returns wiped, totally wiped out. And, for me, I never put in perspective that probably it exhausted him, what he was doing. Of course it did. And to see him coming back so labored and so exhausted, and the disciples seeing him and saying, "Oh, we're talking about the petty stuff, and this guy's doing the action. Whoops, we missed that one."
Yeah.
And who is there to really comfort Jesus? It's his mom.
Mm.
At least in this episode, that's how they portrayed it, which they take some poetic license with, which I'm okay with. And his mom is there to comfort him, and he is just, I got to go to bed. I got to get some rest.
Yeah.
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 Which we all need. You know, we all need to have goals. We all need to have habits. We also got to rest. You know, you got to build that into your timeline.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate your answer, and some people may see it as a cop-out. Not that it's not valid, and yet answering the question of who is someone you know that lives in the United States of America in the last 50 years that you see their habits and you want to be more like them or adopt some of their habits.
It's too long a list.
Mm.
You know, I could not say that it's not, you know, my father,
Yeah.
my mother. I mean, they've been huge influences on me. You know, I think about Peter Willard and Frank Hayward, who started Chop Point. I think about Mike and Tom. You know, we were together so much, and now to see where we've grown in great ways, and a lot of the things that we did together or that we were doing together, I wanted to be more like them. I just saw them as really good people, and you know, I think about priests that have influenced me. I think about Gary Keller a lot.
He's the one that I thought of immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I would listen to that guy talk wherever, whenever.
Right.
Jay Papasan.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And Jay is a business partner with Gary. He's a writer.
Writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an incredible writer.
Incredible writer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He can take a topic that is so difficult to explain and boil it down in 3 paragraphs. Oh, that's how it works.
Yeah.
You know, just makes it so simple. My grandfather was a big influence on me. And really both of them in different ways. My grandfather, Bisson, I learned more about him from other people than I did from him. Because
is it things you hear about him?
It was the things that I would hear about him. Primarily when I was mostly my hot dog stand, because it was very public. You know, a lot of people would come to the hot dog stand and they'd say, "Who are you?" And I'd say, "I'm Rick Bisson." "Oh, you Joe Bisson's grandson?" You know, that was the immediate thing. Greatest guy ever. Nicest man. Do anything for anybody. And I was like, wow, he earned that.
Yeah.
You know, how do I earn that? And my grandfather Bertrand was, you know, my grandfather Bisson was very entrepreneurial, you know, started the moving company. My grandfather Bertrand worked at Bath Iron Works for 38 years, however many it was. And, you know, he did the same job. He did the same job every day. So to me, he wasn't entrepreneurial. And then the more I learned about him, he lobstered. He hunted. You know, he did things that brought in extra income. I didn't know at the same time that he was really good with his money, and he saved a lot of money and invested money and did very well in that regard. So yes, my grandfathers were both very entrepreneurial. I just didn't realize it so much in the beginning. And, you know, my grandfather Bertrand was what I saw as a young kid, kind of grumpy, gruff. And the more I learned and the more time I spent with him, I realized how much love he had in his heart. He just didn't know how to express it.
Yeah.
But he expressed it in his ways, like spending time with us. I mean, I lobstered with him a lot. And he came to, I don't know if all of them, but if I had a sporting event, he was there.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And he'd always say something afterwards. You did pretty well there, Ricky.
That's awesome. If there's one takeaway you want people to have from this episode or about habits, what would that be?
I think back to the chain, start linking them together, because when you link just one little thing, making a commitment to something creates that first link that then connects to the habit that gets you taking the first step. And then the more you link those chains together, then you're linking the balls all together. They're bound
Right.
by this chain that keeps them all together, and they're in that sphere. And if the sphere is, spinning in balance, as close to balance as balance can get, then, you're rolling.
Great. Anything else you want to say?
No.
Okay.
I love you.
Love you too.